Question number 5, Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Does he stand by his statement that dairy prices are likely to be low for, quotes, a little bit longer, end quotes, given the latest auction was a record low?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Given that dairy farm prices have already fallen by 18% since peaking last October, what preparations has his government undertaken for dealing with increased sell-offs by insolvent farmers who can't make ends meet with dairy prices so low?
Well, Mr Speaker, what we have done over the course of the last 7 years after straightening out the mess we inherited from Labor and with our very strong economic management is to make the economy more efficient and more productive. And Mr Speaker, here's a bunch of things that we haven't done. We haven't brought the ETS in straight away. We haven't put a large tax on water irrigation. We haven't put a capital gains tax on every farm. We haven't increased the minimum wage to 2/3 of the average wage. We haven't taken money out of the Primary Growth Partnership, and we are in favour of TPP. Mr Speaker, the Labor Party are claiming they are the farmers' friend. They were the policies they took to the election.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
What is the government's response to the reports that, contrary to Bill English's claims, the banks are already forcing mortgagee sales on indebted farmers, and what's to stop more of these farms being bought by overseas investors?
Well, Mr Speaker,
All right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, firstly, I'm sure that the banks will work closely with farmers as they typically do, Mr Speaker, because there is $35 billion worth of debt, I think, approximately sitting on dairy farms. But, Mr Speaker, one of the things the bankers will be looking at is they'll be sitting there and looking at the policies of a national-led government, which are supported farmers. They'll be looking at the proposed policies of Labor, which are anti-farmers, and they'll be saying, thank goodness Nationals in government.
Order. Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Given his government has rubber-stamped 296 sales of sensitive land to foreign buyers since the start of 2012, how much more land is he prepared to sell overseas?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I think it's important to note that government doesn't, for the most part, actually sell land. Land goes through the Overseas Investment Act and the Overseas Investment Office. Mr Speaker, as we know, the percentage of sales overseas is relatively small, and actually New Zealand's not seen as necessarily the easiest place actually to buy land. If you look around the OECD, we have as many restrictions as most other countries, in some cases more.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
In light of his government having voted down a Labor bill that would have protected farms against being bought up by foreign investors, what steps is he prepared to take to ensure farms that are sold during this downturn won't end up in offshore ownership?
Speaker,
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
This is what would have driven farmers off the land. Going into ETS straight away, whacking a massive new tax on irrigation, putting a capital gains tax on every farm, increasing the costs of wages on every farm, having less money in science and innovation, and being opposed to trade. It's pretty simple, Mr Speaker. Farmers in the dairy sector are subject to an international commodity price which is clearly on a bit of a downturn at the moment, and last year it was in quite a big upswing. In fact, actually, if you look between 2002 and 2006, the on-farm forecast was about the same as what it currently is today. Mr Speaker, it's not new. Apparently, in all those years when Labor was in office, it was fine. Today, it's not.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Can he confirm that there is a late entry in the flag referendum, a map of New Zealand with a for sale sign over it?
Well, the Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, the member really actually needs to sort his game out, because either he wants to go onto his website and change his policy, which is to change the flag with a referendum, or he should actually realise that he's playing stupid politics with actually something that could seriously benefit New Zealand. And that's why Labor continues to poll very poorly, because in the end they're just opposed to everything the government's in favour for. Not because it's a good idea or a bad idea, otherwise they must be misleading New Zealanders, because this is their policy. And when you were on your little chat room a wee while ago, you were telling people you're in favour of it. Were you misleading them deliberately? I don't think so.
Order. Question. Order.